Welcome everyone here, and thank you so much for being here today at our annual town meeting, our Liliha town meeting. We have this every year, approximately at this time after crossover, and some of the bills have been whittled down and we know kind of what to focus on. To answer any questions, to share information, and to get your input as residents of our district, our 27th district. And we bring to you a very illustrious panel because we know that there's a lot of questions or issues that don't necessarily have a specific legislation, or maybe in some cases they do, but there are questions and concerns that you may have as residents of District 27. And we wanted to bring together some of the community experts and people who can answer those questions for you and give you also some input on how we can improve on their perspective, some of their initiatives, and how we can improve our community. Security and safety is our #1 concern for you. It's always our #1 concern for you, and it's really why we do so much of what we do in addition to our legislative duties. So we have with us today, thank you, we have with us today Prosecutor Peter Carlisle, our prosecuting attorney. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi. I'm Peter Carlisle, Honolulu's beloved prosecuting attorney, serving in an unprecedented 4th term. Nice to see the camera. It occurs to me as I was walking around here tonight that it's very good that we're in an educational institution, and on top of that, I would suggest to you that the seeds for success for the future are here present amongst us right now. I see respect over there. I see responsibility over there. I see courage over there. I see cooperation over there. Citizenship, trustworthy, caring, fairness, optimistic. The key to success with the ultimate battle against crime will always be and will remain prevention, prevention, prevention. And that should usually start in the house. Sometimes we have what are called dysfunctional families. Therefore, there is not the opportunity for children to learn from good examples. However, the fallback place for that to occur is here in the schoolhouse. And if these are the concepts that people are trying to instill right now in the youth of this neighborhood, and they are successful, then that will sow the seeds for a brighter future. Now, that having been said, there are some things that we can worry about and be concerned about now that come out of either the legislature or from the Hawaii Supreme Court that I'm very concerned about. A long time ago, basically the Constitution of the United States was framed out of the concept of reasonable behavior. And they expect to have reasonable behavior from the police department. And that was to be the basic rule of law for government, that our actions had to be guided by the concept of reasonableness. I want to tell you about something that I thought was extremely reasonable that they did in Maui. And yet it was ultimately shot down by our Supreme Court and said to be unreasonable behavior. Does anybody here disagree with the concept that drunk driving is a big problem in the state of Hawaii from one end of our state to the other? Anybody think that that's not true? Are you aware that we lose more people to drunk drivers than we do to knives and guns combined? Not atypical for that to be a problem here in the state of Hawaii. So one of the basic ideas that the police department came up here with, as well as nationwide, was a sobriety checkpoint. And anybody who goes down Kalanianiole Highway, which I do going back to Hawaii Kai, which is where I'm from, basically on a 3-day weekend will see a sobriety checkpoint at least several times a year. They had a sobriety checkpoint over on Maui, and it was on basically a country road that was heading down towards one point in the island. And they decided to put up a sobriety checkpoint. And at 500 yards, they put out a 4-foot iridescent orange sign that said, "Sobriety checkpoint 500 yards ahead." Then at 250 yards out, they did exactly the same thing. They put another sobriety checkpoint sign up that sat there and said, "Sobriety checkpoint 250 yards ahead." And then when you got to the actual sobriety checkpoint, it was illuminated with halogen lights that were beaming down on that highway, so it practically looked as bright as the surface of the sun. They had a police officer standing there who had a vest that was reflective. He had on white gloves, and he had, you know how they park planes at the airport, those cone flashlights at night? He had one of those. So all of these things are done to make sure that people know that there's a sobriety checkpoint ahead so that they will slow down, and to make sure it's safe for the officers who are there directing traffic and people to the side. Believe it or not, the experience has been here in the state of Hawaii as well as on the mainland that some person who has gone through those things will turn around before they end up going there to the police department for the sobriety checkpoint. Now, that shouldn't be wildly surprising to any of us. But what the police department did on Maui, in anticipation of that, is they had what was called a chase car pointed in the other direction. So you had everybody coming through these things on this road, which was basically a road between cane fields with not much around, heading towards one particular point on the island, Lahaina. And then they had a chase car pointing back in the opposite direction. Well, lo and behold, this particular night, a car came through. It went through the first sign. It went through the second sign, and it saw a police officer, and it made an abrupt U-turn. So the chase car did exactly what it was supposed to do. He went after the car, followed it a little ways, and noticed that it turned off the highway after the police car was fairly close to the proximity of the rear of the car. Now, what was fascinating about this particular turn was it was down a road to nowhere. It went exactly a quarter of a mile, and there was an animal shelter on the side of the road that was closed. And in the rest of the direction, as you went down there, there was a gate, which meant that he could go nowhere. So what the police officer did at that time was he got out of his car, he approached the police, he approached the people, asked him to step out of the car. He noticed the smell of alcohol, the guy was staggering, and so he was arrested for drunk driving.